Eula Lawrence, Dance of the Shimmering Wave. All character stories. The Spindrift Knight, a scion of the old aristocracy, and the captain of the Knights of Favonius Reconnaissance Company. The reason for which a descendant of the ancient nobles might join the knights remains a great mystery in Mondstadt to this very day. A rebellious descendant of the old aristocracy who was always out on the battlefield, as one born into the old aristocracy, carrying the bloodline of sinners, Eula has needed a unique approach to the world to navigate the towering walls of prejudice peacefully. Of course, this did not prevent her from severing ties with her clan. As the outstanding Spindrift Knight, she hunts down Mondstadt's enemies in the wild to exact her unique vengeance. Character details. Eula's role within the Knights of Favonius is captain of the Reconnaissance Company. The nature of her work means that she rarely sets foot in the city. She spends most of her time out in the wild, leading her team of scouts as they hunt down Abyss Order operatives and other monsters. Known as the Spindrift Knight, Eula wields her blade with consummate skill, and perhaps more importantly, she is well versed in strategy and possesses great courage and excellent intuition. Grandmaster Varka had nothing but the highest praise for her, even declaring once that she was the Dandelion Knight's equal on the battlefield. On the face of it, to have two such outstanding knights attending to the defense of Mondstadt in a single generation should be a cause for nothing but celebration. But dig a little deeper, and there is a fundamental difference between Jean and Eula. For Eula is a descendant of the once aristocratic Lawrence clan. The blood that flows through her veins once flowed through those of Mondstadt's oppressors during one of the darkest periods of the city's history. Consequently, Eula has been viewed with contempt by the citizens of Mondstadt since birth. The Lawrence name stands for a legacy of depravity and despotism that stains Mondstadt's past and scars its minds of its citizens even to this day. So, whenever Eula appears, old wounds resurface. People despise the aristocracy, and this does no favors for her reputation. However, Eula is strong-willed, and in spite of everything, she joined the Knights of Favonius and rose to the rank of captain. When people in the city voiced their reservations, she would respond head-on, claiming that her chosen course of action was out of desire for vengeance. This matter-of-fact confession would alarm them all the more, and has convinced everyone that she joined the Knights of Favonius only to serve as a mole for the former aristocracy. One person who sees things differently is acting Grandmaster Jean. In fact, she speaks rather fondly of Eula. The rumors are all groundless. The Spindrift Knight is simply misunderstood. That's all. Character Story 1. On one hand, she is the descendant of the disgraced Lawrence clan, the scion of a corrupt aristocracy. On the other, she is one of the top 2 sword fighters in Mondstadt. In other words, Eula is equal parts tainted blood and superior swordsmanship. There is no knowing when she might strike, nor what she might take from you. In the eyes of the citizens of Mondstadt, the reconnaissance captain is as unpredictable and tumultuous as waves on a stormy sea. Eula responds with a cold haughtiness to accusations of this nature. To any who dare insinuate such things to her face, she replies, "How dare you? I will remember this." She is consumed by the desire to avenge herself, but is often on the move far away from the city. Sometimes, upon her return to Mondstadt, she will brandish her greatsword and march straight to the Knights of Favonius headquarters. On one occasion, 2 fresh recruits standing guard on their first day on patrol watched this scene play out before their eyes. Alarmed and unsure how to respond, they ultimately did not dare to intervene. Instead, they simply watched on helplessly while Eula made a beeline for Master Jean's office. Much to their surprise, however, hours passed, and no sound of a struggle was heard from within. Still worried, the guards raised their concerns to Cavalry Captain Kaya and Librarian Lisa as they were passing by. The reconnaissance captain is back again? When you saw her, was it when she was marching towards Jean's office with her sword in hand, looking like she wanted to kill somebody? Goodness, I must head there straight away. How can they have a tea break without me? Lisa hurried to Jean's office the moment she finished speaking. Meanwhile, Kaya took the two guards outside and explained to them, whilst trying to suppress a fit of the giggles. We all know that the acting Grand Master is a good judge of character, don't we? The Knights of Favonius are interested in a person's ability, not their family history. That's why she gives up her time to spar with the reconnaissance captain. In doing so, she can preserve the dignity of the Knights of Favonius, while also providing a way to settle old grievances. Quite brilliant, don't you think? So that's how it is. So tea break is a code for sparring? This kind of thing occurs almost on a monthly basis, but if they're engaged in some sort of strange sparring ritual in there for the sake of settling old grievances and honing their fighting skills, how come they don't make a ton of noise? Character Story 2. In truth, Eula is nothing like the fearsome predator many imagine her to be. On the contrary, constantly being met with prejudice at every turn means she is often the victim. At one time, shops would refuse to sell her their goods. Restaurants would put no care and attention into her orders, and the citizens on her patrol route would refuse to cooperate with her. So, Eula's work is fraught with difficulties. When conflict arises, Eula fights back with a sternly worded threat to indicate that she will remember this grievance and make the offending party pay for it one day. It seems to work like a magic spell, because as soon as these words are uttered, the conflict ceases immediately without ever having to escalate to a level of an all-out confrontation. Funnily enough, although people always have their guard up around Eula, she is a law-abiding citizen and has never harmed another Mondstadter in her life. She may come across as having a somewhat frosty demeanor, but she is entirely scrupulous in her speech and conduct. No one can ever find fault with her actions, and as people gradually get to know her, their morbid fear of her will dissipate. They will also start to realize her threats of vengeance are nothing more than a figure of speech that simply serve as a verbal warning in the moment. Eula, who may or may not be working to bring down the Knights of Favonius from the inside. Eula, who may or may not be an aristocratic mole. New recruits in the Knights of Favonius find her the most difficult person to deal with. When Jean sends a new recruit to track down Eula in the wilds and deliver a new set of verbal orders, they always receive the same response. If you have to resort to tasking the descendant of your former oppressors with doing your work, then perhaps you are not as strong as I thought. But despite the antagonism in her words, she will complete her newly assigned task to perfection. The new recruit is invariably forced to admit that with her abilities, it is no wonder she was able to achieve a captaincy within just a few years of joining the Knights. Everyone knows Eula is the frosty and antagonistic Spindrift Knight, the aristocrat who has a score to settle with the Knights of Favonius, the openly hostile and potentially dangerous individual. But is this really the truth of who she is? On the way back, the new recruit thinks back over Eula's every action. What was that kind and resilient look I saw in her eyes when she wasn't looking at me? She seems to take her job seriously. So surely she can be relied on after all. Character Story 3. Mondstadt is a city of freedom and happiness, where even the descendants of a disgraced former ruling class can find true friends. Fortunately, there is one person whom Eula can rely on to be her spokesperson to the Mondstadt masses, and that person is Outrider Amber. Everyone loves Amber, so when she is around, shopkeepers will sell their wares to Eula at a normal price. If they're in an especially good mood, they may even exchange a few words with her during the process. It is at moments like this that Eula shows her most agreeable side. Because of this, and because Amber is just so nice, she'll often accompany Eula out on trips, or even run all her errands for her and deliver the goods straight to her home. Amber is also the reason that the city folk end up hearing all about the reconnaissance captain's accomplishments out in the field. Each time Amber informs them of Eula's long list of achievements in battle, they can't help but let out a little gasp of surprise. Early one weekend morning, Amber stood atop a makeshift stage of wooden crates and began announcing Eula's latest highlights. Recently, the Knights of Favonius reconnaissance captain saved the life of a woman at Dorman Port. After further investigation with this woman's close cooperation, she proceeded to successfully capture all the Abyss Order operatives hiding in the vicinity of the port. The woman in question is a renowned legal expert from Liyue, and the Knights of Favonius have since received official correspondence from the Liyue Communications Office thanking the reconnaissance captain for her deeds. Whether because Amber's persistent efforts to overcome historical prejudices, or because Eula's achievements as a knight have quelled the long-standing fear in people's hearts, Eula's life has changed noticeably in recent years. Most of the city folk are no longer openly hostile towards her, and she has won over the members of the Knights of Favonius with her consistent results in the field. As for members of the reconnaissance company under her leadership, they support her unconditionally. They always have her back when they head out to Mondstadt's outskirts to defend the peace of their nation. Of course, the person who has always tirelessly rooted for Eula, and who is now the most delighted to see people's attitudes towards her change, is Amber. They have been friends for a long time before Eula ever joined the Knights of Favonius, and as the beloved mentee of Amber's grandfather, the first outrider, Eula has her complete trust. Character Story 4. One might not expect this from her frosty attitude and sharp tongue, but Eula is a talented chef. The reconnaissance company today prides itself on having the best field rations in the Knights of Favonius. One staple of their inventory is a moon-shaped pie. Though a field ration, this wonderfully delicious and highly portable food is loved by all who try it. The reconnaissance company's designated chef once admitted that when developing this item, she was inspired by the captain's own baked goods. She extended the baking time to make the crust tougher and also substituted a few highly perishable ingredients with ones that last longer, reducing the cost while significantly prolonging the shelf life. Even after such a major change to the recipe, the pie still tasted delicious. So whenever the scouts are snacking, they can't help but wonder, if this is the field ration version, how delicious must the captain's original recipe taste? The answer to this question is buried deep within the pages of a dusty book in the library. The Lawrence clan may have been overthrown a long time ago, but they have never given up hope of one day rising again and reclaiming their place as the ruling class. So that they are always prepared for this monumental moment, their offspring are subjected to an educational regimen so unbelievably harsh that it is considered borderline abusive. Noble obligations must be performed to absolute perfection in every possible sense, and these obligations cover etiquette, ritual, and study, as well as cooking and other domestic chores. In the eyes of the Lawrence clan, post-liberation Mondstadt lacks etiquette and taste. When the day comes for our clan to seize power once more, there shall be none who are qualified to be our servants. We must be cautious. We must never stoop to the level of the commoners and set foot in the quagmire of vulgarity. The Lawrence clan's culinary arts teacher was particularly strict. If your dough was missing a half-spoonful of flour, or if your condiment was a few grains of salt short, or if you were 2 seconds late removing something from the oven, you were likely to be both scolded and disciplined. As far as Eula is concerned, the haute cuisine, revered by the aristocrats, is just another worthless consequence of people dogmatically following outdated rules. For this reason, the only kind of person who Eula will permit to try her own home baking is someone who she respects? No, that would be taking it too far. Rather, it should be someone who she keeps grudgingly accepts will keep following me around and bothering me, seemingly undeterred by my warnings, despite having crossed me many times to date. Character Story 5. Besides traditional etiquette, art is the second most highly prized asset to the aristocrats, known as the second soul, the dance of sacrifice, a ritual used by illustrious families to display their nobility, is thought of as the crystallized form of this soul, the prized gem in the ruler's scepter. Folklore holds that Mondstadt's most illustrious clans jointly created the dance of sacrifice long before the aristocracy's reign of bloodshed began. The third act, which represents the Lawrence clan, is a solo dance, known as flickering candlelight. The most important part of the dance of sacrifice, it was performed by the most senior dancer, who was typically the eldest daughter of the clan. The Lawrence clan would summon top dancers to serve as tutors for the eldest daughter to ensure it was performed to perfection. Bleeding toes were seen as a point of pride and a rite of passage for every dancer. This ancient ceremony was a continuous tradition for so long that even today, long after being expelled by the people of Mondstadt, the Lawrence clan still honors it. However, without the grand banquet and the glorious stage that once featured prominently in ceremonial performances, the dance of sacrifice is now far from the grandiose affair it once was. Furthermore, the stringent requirements regarding the dancer's posture and movements have also been relaxed due to the lack of tutors. In the end, the Lawrence clan reluctantly decided that it could no longer be a mandatory part of the curriculum, and they relegated it to an artistic pastime. Over time, the negative connotations and elitist expectations associated with this dance have faded away, and today it survives simply as a graceful dance. As the eldest daughter of the present-day Lawrence clan, Eula found it to be a relaxing pastime in her youth, and a welcome respite from her other grueling courses of study. Today, Eula appears to have put her artistic pursuits behind her. At least, no one pictures dancing when they think of the Spindrift Knight. Nevertheless, a distinctly dance-like aesthetic can be observed in Eula's bladework, along with an elegant rhythm and musicality that are difficult to capture in words. As her greatsword rises and falls and sways to and fro, her distinctive and graceful poise is like that of a dancer under the moonlight, far away, immaculate, and sublime. Glaciers and Waves. Eula is the bearer of the Lawrence family crest, the glacial seal. It is the highest martial symbol of the clan, and represents the spirit of the Lawrence clan in the early days of Mondstadt, before their fall from grace, cold and unsullied, undaunted by any flame, composed, and unshaken in all circumstances. Few among their numbers have passed the clan's trials in 1,000 years, and the hopes of the clan are passed from one seal-bearer to the next. Eula was still quite young when she underwent the trial, but she passed with ease, taking up the seal in the process. She then departed with that badge of honor in her possession, and has barely contacted the clan since. Her icy sword is a manifestation of the strength represented by the seal, striking with the cold, brutal force of a relentless blizzard, and driving her foes into retreat. Yet, sharp and bright as ice as she is, she has the title of Spindrift Knight, a name that leads many who hear it to assume that she manipulates hydro instead of cryo. There is a story behind that misunderstanding. The story of a habit. Eula carries an exquisitely crafted bone whistle with her at all times. Each time she blows it, the vivid sound of ocean waves rings out loud and clear, far and wide. Since the area her company is in charge of borders the sea, reproducing the sound of waves can be an excellent means of disturbing the enemy's judgment, or of deceiving less intelligent monsters into believing that a tsunami is inbound, causing them to flee in panic. Using this unique combat technique has helped Eula emerge victorious against larger forces than her own on numerous occasions, and has also earned her the moniker of Spindrift Knight. Of course, a bone whistle is capable of imitating many other sounds, and Eula has her reasons for imitating the ocean waves. It would seem that something akin to Glacier Knight should suit her better, but perhaps Eula herself prefers the rolling waves to the cold and unyielding ice, roaming freely across the world, gentle but firm, with the reefs and sands in their domain. Yes, she yearns not to be sharp and rigid like ice, but to be free and unbound, like the ocean spray. Vision. Where do grievances come from? Dire straits in the present, or the misfortunes of the past? And what does vengeance mean? To right wrongs and rebalance the scales of justice in one's favor, or to drive one's foes into a pit of agony? Restore the clan's former glory, win the respect of the common folk, stand once more at the apex of rulership. These things were utterly unimportant to Eula. She never experienced the great humiliation of her clan, and all the torment she had endured in her life had been at their own hands. She attempted to free herself from their shackles, yet struggled to obtain recognition from the outside world. Her talk of grievances and vengeance was but a habit, a signal, a shield. For someone in her unique circumstances and position, what remarks should she just laugh off, and what ideas should she hold on to? How should she fight this battle to break free once and for all from the great burden of her bloodline? It was with all these questions, and more, circling around in her mind, that Eula came under the tutelage of a long-forgotten old outrider. From him, she learned an open-mindedness and down-to-earth persistence that she had never previously encountered. Before grappling with grievances and vengeance, before questions of clan and outsider, she first had to discover herself, her survival mechanism, her means of self-preservation, her grit and determination. She may articulate it in terms of grievances and vengeance, but nothing can change what it is at its core, something both strong and kind. Eula finally found herself on a gentle path of revenge that was hers alone. And, the moment she set foot on that path, there it appeared before her, her vision.